Welcome back. Let's just jump right into today's explainer, because we are unpacking some source material that literally shatters the barrier to entry for 3D animation. We're going to look at the exact blueprint one creator used to take a standard everyday smartphone and transform it into a fully fledged 3D animation studio. By the end of this, you'll understand the precise workflow needed to build, animate, and broadcast genuinely compelling stories, all from the palm of your hand. Now, you might be wondering, can a phone really compete with desktop 3D software? Like, no way, right? For the longest time, the assumption was absolutely that if you wanted to tell beautiful animated stories, you needed a massive, high-end PC, a ridiculous graphics card, and incredibly complex software like Blender or Maya that practically takes years to master. But as this explainer is going to show us, that is just no longer the case. You can craft incredibly moving, visually distinct animations using entirely mobile-first workflows. So here is our roadmap for today. First, crafting your 3D story. Second, gathering models and animations. Third, building the garden scene. Fourth, creating the indoor environment. And finally, editing and final polish. All right, step one, crafting your 3D story. This is absolutely our foundation. The absolutely crucial point here is that before you ever open an app, before you download a single pixel, you gotta have a core narrative. The technology, that's just the tool. The story is the engine. To illustrate this mobile workflow, the source uses a really simple but deeply relatable journey of patience. It starts with a boy enthusiastically planting a seed in his garden. He commits to watering it every single day. But as days turn into weeks without a single green sprout showing up, he enters this phase of anxious waiting. In fact, the source story notes he gets so sad and disillusioned that he stops eating properly, just lying around his house. But then, the turning point. A tiny sprout appears. His joy returns, time passes, and ultimately that tiny seed flourishes into a magnificent, fruit-bearing apple tree. It's just a perfect, compact little narrative to bring to life in 3D. Moving right along to step 2, gathering models and animations. These are our building blocks. So before we can animate, we have to hunt down the right digital puzzle pieces to actually construct our world. The creator smartly divides this asset hunt into two clear categories: static versus action. For static models, the environments, the props, the textures, the creator heavily utilized Sketchfab. That's where you're grabbing your trees, the laptop, the room furniture. On the flip side, for dynamic movements, the actual acting, they turned to Mixamo. This is a library where you download specific human actions, things like walking, planting, watering, typing, and lying down in despair. By splitting up the asset gathering like this, you keep the mobile workflow incredibly streamlined and organized. What's really fascinating about the creator's specific shopping list of models is the progression of it all. They started with a base character model named Remy. Then, notice the items they needed for the timeline: seeds, both with and without a sprout, a low-poly tree, and then a full apple tree. This is exactly how they show the passage of time so seamlessly. They also grabbed just everyday items: a laptop, a dining table, a food plate, a water pump, some mud, and grass. It's these simple, clever little assets that visually anchor the story and build a believable, lived-in world. And it's all stored right on a smartphone. Okay, step 3, building the garden scene. It's time for some Prisma 3D magic. This is where the whole thing really comes to life, using a mobile app called Prisma 3D. Think of this app as our main staging ground, the digital studio where the boy's hope is quite literally planted. The creator breaks down this Prisma 3D workflow into a really nice, structured, repetitive process. First, you import an island base model to act as your ground, followed by your main tree models. Next, you apply the textures, and then you simply copy and paste those trees and grass models to fill in all the empty gaps, which creates this lush, dense outdoor environment. Finally, you set your directional lighting to cast realistic shadows, tweak the sky color to a light blue, and position your camera. It's basically digital landscaping, step by step. But hey, to make the story truly believable, our character actually needs to interact with the world around him. The source highlights a brilliant feature in Prisma 3D where you can merge a static Sketchfab model, like the watering can or the seed, directly to the moving hands of the Mixamo animation. So as Remy performs the watering animation from Mixamo, the static watering can moves perfectly right along with his hand. I mean, that is the secret sauce to making mobile animation feel professional and completely cohesive. And get this, take a look at the number 6. How do you animate a tiny plant growing into a massive apple tree entirely on a phone? It's elegantly simple. The creator reveals it took exactly 2 keyframes. Literally, just 2. They set the first keyframe at 0, move the timeline forward to exactly 6 seconds, set a second keyframe, and just scale the apple tree up 5 times its original size on all axes. And just like that, a perfectly smooth 6-second growth animation is born, completely bypassing any complex rigging. Section 4. Creating the indoor environment. Time passes. So, we need to shift our focus to the indoor scenes to represent that agonizing passage of time as the boy waits and waits for his garden to sprout. Now, building an interior architecture on a mobile app takes a bit of ingenuity. The creator didn't just download a pre-built house. Instead, they took basic 3D cubes, scaled them, and shaped them into an open front room, essentially just 3 walls, a floor, and a roof, leaving the front entirely open, kind of like a dollhouse. This lets the camera easily peek inside. From there, they populated it with the dining table, the laptop, and the food, and applied those crucial typing and sad sitting animations we grabbed earlier from Mixamo. Now, here is a pro tip that is a total game changer. When rendering these indoor scenes, the creator points out a really common problem. When you build with thick cubes in a mobile renderer, the lighting can sometimes cast weird, messy shadows right in the corners. The fix? Dive into the Prisma 4D render settings and simply turn off edge shadows. Honestly, it's kind of amazing how flipping a single toggle switch instantly fixes terrible lighting. It immediately cleans up all that unnecessary visual clutter and gives your indoor scenes an incredibly clean, professional final look. Finally, Section 5, Editing and Final Polish, bringing it all to life. Okay, so you've exported all these gorgeous clips from Prisma 3D, the planting, the waiting, the growing, but right now, they are just silent video files. To elevate your 3D work into a real cinematic reel, you gotta have the right final touches. Audio is literally half the experience. The creator advises adding a voiceover to narrate the story. You can totally use your own voice or even an AI text-to-speech tool. Then you start layering the atmosphere. Download some free nature sound effects from YouTube or Pixabay for the garden scenes, and maybe throw in a subtle humming fan sound effect for those sad indoor waiting scenes. It completely grounds the 3D visuals in reality. But there's one final hurdle. Free mobile software almost always comes with a watermark. Right? But the creator offers a genius mobile workaround that I'm calling the 2K crop trick. By intentionally exporting your scenes from Prisma 3D in a super high-resolution 2K portrait mode, you give yourself extra pixel padding. So when you take that file into your final video editor and physically crop the frame to slice out the Prisma 3D watermark at the edge, you don't ruin the image quality. The resulting cropped video still retains a beautifully crisp 1080p resolution, which is absolutely perfect for a 9:16 vertical social media reel. Just an incredibly smart, practical hack. And that brings us to the end of the workflow, which is beautifully summed up by the exact moral of our boy's story. Good things take time. This applies not just to the boy anxiously waiting for his apple tree to grow, but to you, the creator. Mastering a mobile 3D animation workflow, hunting down the assets, keyframing the scenes, dialing in the audio, it is a patient journey. But the harvest? A stunning piece of animated art you built entirely on a device that fits right in your pocket. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that the technical barriers are completely gone and your smartphone is officially a 3D studio, what story are you going to build today?